Today we'll be putting together a rub I use for my brisket. We're going to start out with 1 cup of salt. I mix about half and half kosher sea salt with regular table salt. To that we'll be adding exactly the same amount of black pepper. So this is 1 cup of black pepper. Now this is all you need to do here is just salt and pepper. You don't have to do any more than this. And typically this is about all I do. But I've started kind of adding a little bit of extra stuff to it. We're going to start with 1 teaspoon of paprika, 1/2 teaspoon cayenne pepper. This is both nutmeg and cinnamon. I would call that just a pinch. It's just a very, very small amount. And that, again, that was cinnamon and nutmeg. This is 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And then I'll be adding 1 teaspoon of white sugar, and I've put a little bit of red pepper flake in there. I have found the best way to mix this, instead of shaking it, which doesn't really incorporate everything together. I found that just doing this is the best way to mix it. You can be here all day trying to mix this, and it's funny, I just kind of stumbled upon this one day. It sort of sloshes it back and forth and kind of cross mixes it just by spinning this. And again, you can shake it, it doesn't mix it. You can turn it upside down and do like this, and you will be there all day long when just something as simple as this, it's basically fully incorporated. I'm gonna roll just a little bit more with it, and I'm seeing basically everything is pretty well incorporated. Some of the salts, the heavier salts, will sort of separate out a little bit. Actually, in fact, this is probably not fully incorporated just yet. As you apply this, my recommendation would be to continue, after you season part of the brisket, put the lid back on it and give it a couple turns, because you want that ratio of salt to pepper to be consistent throughout, not only the single brisket that you're seasoning, but if you're seasoning multiple briskets today, and this should be enough for multiple briskets. In fact, I'm doing 4 briskets today, and I think this should be enough for all 4 of those briskets, and then have some left over. All right, so what we got today is select boneless beef briskets. This is Packer briskets. This thing weighs in at 77 pounds. Haven't actually got on the scale to test it, but I'll do that after the meat's out of the box and just see what just the meat weighs. This is from Sam's Club. These briskets were $3.18 a pound. So 77 pounds came to roughly $240. It's a really nice brisket. Again, this is USDA choice. That's an okay looking brisket. It's beautiful. Love that brisket right there. And it looks like today we only got 4 briskets. These are large briskets. I didn't know if I was going to cook 3 or 4 of these. It's kind of going to depend on the size, because these are quite large briskets. I'm probably only going to do 3 of these today. Looks like these will mostly need minimum trimming, and when I say minimum trimming, I do very little trimming. I'm going to take some of this decal fat off. Same thing here, I'll cut a little of this decal fat off. This one will need a little bit more trimming because this bottom, this bottom of this brisket, the fat cap is really thick. So that one may not go today. This one's got a little bit of a very low decal fat right there, almost between the flat and the point, but very little trimming. I can feel just very, very soft fat on these. So I think between all of these, you can see here, that's pretty thick fat. It's hard fat. Now this is getting up a little bit of softer fat right in here, but this brisket is probably getting turned into hamburger. I typically do that. Out of one of these cases, I end up with one that, you know, more than likely will turn into hamburger. I mean, that would be some good eating, but it's going to be a lot of trimming, and I just don't have time. Sometimes I'll take these flats and I'll kind of clean those up a little bit. But the way these briskets look, you know, other than taking some decal fat out here, I'm probably gonna unpack them. I'll put a rub on them and I'll stick them in the smoker. This has got a little bit of thick fat. That'll get a little bit of trimming there. But again, I'll leave most of that fat. I've got the smoker, the double barrel smoker. I've got it going out there. I think I'm right at 200 degrees. These will go in probably around 250, 260. And that'll significantly bring the temperature down in the chamber, especially when you're cooking 3 of these at a time. I can fit 4 of these in that double drum smoker at one time, depending on the size of the briskets. Now these are larger briskets, but I'll have no trouble getting 2 of these on one shelf. So yeah, stick with us. I'll get these unpacked and we'll show kind of getting the rub on them, getting them trimmed down a little bit, and then getting a little bit of rub on them. All right, so what we'll do, if I can find a knife, let's look out here. Oh, it's a beautiful brisket. My goodness. Man, I tell you, sometimes you just get lucky here. You are going to make a mess, and that's okay. All right, so I'm gonna take a look at this. I'm not gonna dry this thing off. We're in southern Colorado, and it's a pretty dry climate out here. What I don't want to happen is for these things to dry up to the point where I can't get a rub to stick to them. I don't do mustard or anything like that. It'll just depend on that brisket having a little bit of moisture. That's all I'm doing to this. Sometimes if I'm, if I were doing a competition, which you know, I've never done a barbecue competition, and probably never will, but I'd probably go in there and work on that decal, some of that inner fat. I'd go through here and take some silver skin off. I find a lot of times, it just, for me, it's not that big of a deal. Now, I don't want to bite down on a big piece of this hard fat, so I am going to come in here. Some of this fat will render, but if you've got a big, thick piece like this here, that's not all going to render down. And you're just gonna be left with a big old fatty chunk of stuff that it's just too fatty. Again, I'm not wasting any of this. It gets turned into hamburger. I'm gonna come in here and just trim just the edge of that brisket down, just like that. That's all I'm doing to this one. I'm not touching any more of this fat here. That is good enough. I want to get all these trimmed, then I'll season them all at the same time, just so I don't have a mess with you know, seasoning floating around everywhere. And so anyway, let me get this placed over here. You see these cutting boards, they're kind of color coded for various things, vegetables, meat, things like that. I use all of these for meat, so I'm not mixing these together. Next one's coming up. It's a good looking brisket here. That double drum smoker, it's a upright smoker made out of two 55-gallon drums. The lower drum is simply a burn chamber. It's a double-walled insulated burn chamber. I really enjoy cooking in that smoker. It does a really good job. I've got a build video on that if you're interested. That's a big old brisket. Start working on this decal fat here. That's it for the top. That's all I'm doing. The bottom, we got a flap under here. I'm gonna leave that all attached. A little bit of harder fat under there. Right in here, I'm gonna take some of this down. Yeah. No, that's meat there, and this is fat here. Well, I got a little too carried away there, so I got to meat like that. I don't worry about stuff like that. I'm just rolling with it. You'll see a lot of folks rounding the edges and all that. It's another thing I don't do. This is a big brisket. I imagine this is over 20 pounds for this single brisket here. Now the only reason I'm doing this is just there's a little bit of almost dry blood discoloration. Probably not a big deal, but I don't like looking at it, so it's going away. All I'm doing to that brisket. Might come up and hit that. Next one. cutting these, if you buy a packer type brisket, it's going to come in one of these plastic sleeves. You kind of leave that a little bit like a bathtub. It'll catch most of the juice coming off of these things. And I just lift it straight up off this plastic, and then not that make quite such a big mess. So I've recently acquired a couple rolls of tent canvas. It's 100% cotton duck canvas. It's waterproof material, but it's a natural material. They've been making canvas tents out of it for hundreds of years. I've also required a industrial sewing machine, and so let me know in the comments. This tent that we're building is going to be for elk hunting here in Colorado. So if you're interested in seeing that tent come together, it's going to be at least a 2-week project. But we're doing everything, the zippers, got a grommet press, webbing and all that. It'll be a 30-foot by 16-foot canvas wall tent. So I don't know, whether to post stuff like that on this channel. Me personally, I would watch the heck out of that video. But let me know in the comments, anybody who is maybe curious of watching a video on making a canvas wall tent. Now, this particular tent will have probably 10, maybe as many as 15 people in this tent during any given time during hunting season. And a lot of times you'll have folks come and go. We do a lot of fly fishing. I'm not a fly fisherman, I'm learning, but we'll have some people kind of come and go. Last year we had a couple people just drop in, do a little bit of fishing. Maybe they were hunting, maybe they weren't, but nice to have the room in the tent. I'm also building 2 wood stoves for that particular tent. I'm gonna have one stove in the front of the tent, one stove in the back, and then we're also doing a water jacket, a stainless steel water jacket that will hang off of those stoves. That'll provide us the ability to heat our water, which we typically get out of the creek at the particular place that we like to hunt. So again, if you're interested, let me know. I'm going to document that build anyway, but I don't know whether to post it on this channel or maybe make another channel to post it. So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are there. I've always said, I will never say the words like and subscribe on a YouTube video. I guess I never realized that in order to monetize, you have to have met a certain amount of criteria. One of those is the amount of subscribers. So I do want to keep these videos coming, and in order to do that, I do kind of need to have y'all support. So if you're not already subscribed, I would really appreciate it. It would just make my day every time I go on there and see additional subscriber. It just really makes me happy that I can keep kind of making these videos. For me, that's the reward, is just seeing, maybe even without monetizing, I like to see that people are enjoying the videos. And when that doesn't happen, then of course I won't be making the videos anymore. We're gonna roll with this rub. I've made 2 pint jars. I've combined those. There's video on that that'll be coming out. You are going to make a mess here. You can have like a tray or a piece of plastic down or whatever. I just typically am getting the broom out because inevitably some of this is going to end up on the floor.
Big cutting board.
Ooh, sounds like a birthday present. I don't typically actually. Oh yeah, that's a good idea, honey. Yeah, might make a good video. Make one that we can take to elk camp. I'm just going to give this a quick mix just to make sure that salt pepper is incorporated evenly. And my arm's getting tired, so this is going into a pint jar.
Is it too big of a jar?
Yeah, that's what I've been told. I got no laugh.
I was snickering.
Right. Alright. You know, I don't put this stuff on here until it just can't hold anymore. I put what I think is a proper coating just based off experience, but what you're seeing here is just me kind of going back over, finding little areas that don't have quite as much, and then just kind of hitting those again. In this thicker part of the point, I go a little bit heavier there. On that flat, I tend to go just a little bit lighter. I like to let those just kind of sit there. And we go again.
What is it, 3.18?
$3.18 a pound. Yep. Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good deal. Sam's Club doesn't sell Select. They only sell it, well, I take that back. I think their flank steaks is the only thing that they have Select in. This is a choice. A lot of times you can go up there, depending on how their prices are running, you can get Prime cheaper than you can get Choice. And I've gotten Prime at about I want to say $3.20 a pound. This was $3.18, so you know it's almost as cheap as the Choice sometimes. And I think the last case of brisket I got was also Choice. That was several months ago. That was probably at least a month and a half ago. I got a case of briskets. We've already gone through all of those briskets. I cook about 20 to 30 of these a year, sometimes probably a little bit more than that. I think last year I cooked 24, and this year so far, this will be my 9th brisket this year, just since January. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, those were $3.38 a pound, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, I got a video on those, just kind of unboxing on those. Anyway, and you can see this is sat a little bit and it started to kind of absorb some of that salt. And I like to kind of do that before I flip these. I'm running out of space here, so let's see. All right, I still got to do the bottoms. I'm just wanting to kind of get something on the top here. These briskets are still very wet, kind of shiny wet, and that's what you want. Get this stuff to stick. You know, it's funny because you can spend all the time trimming, get all the fat you want off, That thing is picture perfect, round corners. You can still screw it up. You can still screw it up. And it's funny, you know, a lot of these restaurants you go to, you think they're trimming that brisket like you see on, you know, some of these competitions. No, no way in hell they're doing that. I can guarantee you. Then again, a lot of those restaurants don't have really good brisket. I just almost got to the point where I just don't like ordering brisket because I'm always disappointed. You can find some of those. Sometimes you can luck out. Just go to a restaurant and just get a good brisket that day. And that's kind of the way it works when you're doing it. You know, you can go to all the trouble and you can still kind of, something goes wrong and you can screw it up. But I find, you know, when you kind of stop caring like this, I don't care. I find I have better luck. I'm just getting close. I'm just taking a shot in the dark, just trying to get close. That's funny how that is. A lot of times, I mean, some of these briskets will surprise you like, man, that was a good brisket. And I have some that are just home runs. I'm cooking up at altitude. I'm at over 7,000 feet here where I live. And it's different cooking brisket at altitude. So down at sea level, your water boils at 212 degrees roughly. Here at 7,300 feet, water is going to start boiling at a much lower temperature, about 198, which means if you're not careful, you're going to boil all the water out of the meat. And I'm not going to get into a long discussion, but I'll tell you what I have to do at altitude here. I pull my briskets at about, I go heavy on the smoke early, and I pull my briskets at about 152 degrees is when I pull them. I pull them, I do the Texas crutch. You have to here in Colorado, it's just so dry. I wrap them. I used to roll with butcher paper. I find that butcher paper releases a little bit too much of the moisture. So what I do is I'll put several layers of aluminum foil for the bottom. I go fat down when I wrap them, and I cook fat down. These will go in unwrapped to 150 degrees internal. I'll pull them, lay several sheets of aluminum foil down. On top of that, I've got super wide butcher paper. I'll lay that down, and I'll get them wrapped up in aluminum foil, nice and tight. And I'll put them back in there, make sure the temperature probe is, you know, seated properly. I use a meter probe, and I'll kind of watch that, use my cell phone. And the good thing about that, when you do have a home run brisket and you're like, man, you can, and I record on there what the temperature, humidity, and the dew point is, because that affects what's called density altitude. And so I watch all of that stuff, and I've got a range that I like to cook in and a range that I don't like to cook in. And so sometimes you just got to cook and you can't wait for the weather to do exactly what you want it to do, but that certainly plays a factor in how some of these briskets are turning out. But what I was saying on that meter, there's several different brands. I guess I'm partial to meter just because that's all I've ever used. I think it's a great company, great product. But the neat thing is you can go in there and you can see what temperature you pulled it at. You can see how long the cook was. There's graphs and timelines and a section to make notes for yourself. So as far as being able to repeat a home run brisket cook, the meter has certainly helped me. Like, why was that brisket so good? What did I do different? You know, I pulled one early because I had to go to bed. You know, and I'm like, If I don't pull this thing and wrap it, I'm never going to get the temperature. So I pulled it early, and it happened to be about 152. Now at sea level, that's not what you want to do. You know, you go baking here in Colorado, baking is different. I think this one I got top and bottom, yeah. Baking is different here, and smoking is different too. Cooking in general is different in Colorado just because of the altitude. Now, here's the meter. The probe comes out. The box can snap onto the side of any metal container, like your smoker or stand for your, you know, whatever you have. But anything metal, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, and here's kind of me getting impatient, you know, it's like, because I don't care. I'll tell you one thing. What you say?
It's almost go time.
Yeah, it's almost go time. I'm out of time. I ain't got time for this. And you know, this brisket's going to be amazing. I can tell you that. We're within a pretty high probability, I would say. Don't always get it right, but.
Get too perfect.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to go too heavy on this little. Oh yeah. Yeah, somebody's gonna have to sweep. Now I do take these points and I kind of do CPR on them. You know, these are still cold. Believe it or not, this will flatten that point out a little bit. There's a lot of decal fat that runs through there, but already you can see that thing is flattened out. And what that means is just a little bit more even cook on that brisket. Just a little bit more even. I don't have an offset box, so I don't have the problem of having to spin, you know, the point towards the fire, you know, having that uneven cooking. It gets cooked pretty evenly all around, but you know, the thickness of the meat certainly plays a factor in that. I don't have that ability to spin a brisket closer to the, you know, the burn chamber. I just don't. Just by way of the design of my smoker, but I do love my double drum smoker. Got a buddy I go hunting with, and my plan is to get him a double drum smoker built at some point this year. Not making any promises, but I'd like to get one built for him, so that would be the third one that I put together.
Looks like a face.
Hopefully not my face.
Let's see.
What are you saying, honey? Oh, you're talking about right here?
Eyes and lips.
Oh, okay. All right, what do you think? Does it look like me? All right.
Oh my goodness, it looks like a fish now.
All right. So this fish is going on the smoker. All right. Do a little CPR practice. And I tell you what, can you tell there how much flatter that is just by doing that? I mean, I don't know that I've seen anybody else do that. I might have to patent that move. I call it brisket CPR. Okay, so I think I'm about finished up here. Pretty happy with that. That rub is soaked in pretty good there. Now we just got to get these out, get them on the grill. I imagine these are probably around the 20, 40, 60. Yeah, these are about 20 pounds each. Haven't done a lot of trimming, so you know, that's going to be starting out with about 55, 60 pounds of meat right there going in the smoker, and it's going to soak up a lot of energy in that process, a lot of heat energy. So this will be a long cook. All right, so right. All right, so here's double drum smoker, again, 2 55-gallon drums. Let's take a minute, let's just see how this thing opens, make sure nothing's in the way here. The burn chamber's in the bottom. This thing just swivels open just like this. You can check out the burn basket. So that's it going in there. Got about 20 pounds of charcoal. I'm using this Frontier charcoal. I don't normally pour this in, but I want to get a little extra coal in there. Now, I normally don't pour that in. I just load the burn basket and then set it in and then light a couple tumbleweeds. If you haven't used tumbleweeds, these things are incredible. I put about 4 tumbleweeds on there, light it. I'll leave the top open, and then I'll leave the ball valve down here open until the coals get started. Now, I'm from North Carolina. I use a lot of white oak there. It's pretty popular, mild smoking wood. I can't find white oak here, but as y'all know, probably most of you know that Jack Daniel's whiskey barrels, in fact, I think most whiskey barrels are made out of white oak. So that's how I get my white oak here. And I'm gonna go heavy on the smoke right off the bat. Distribute that a little bit. Try not to burn myself. And so I'm just gonna come in here and that's about all I do right there. I'll incorporate a few more out here, and I'll get that smoke going early. If you want to use hickory, that's fine. Whatever you like. You're barbecuing, you're making all the rules. That's the good thing about it. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do it or how to do it. You might find your own way. Works just as good or better, maybe. All right, I'm going fat down here. Ooh, that's hot. I want to leave enough room on those sides where that smoke can get up through there.
You gotta put 2 pieces at the top.
Put 2 at the top.
They fit good?
They fit good. That's a big brisket. I'm gonna put this probe in this lower brisket here. Really want to read the instructions on how far to insert that probe. It's not as far as you would think. I want to just make sure. Nothing on that. And it's going. I can look from the phone and see where that lower brisket is. And give me a good idea. I know the top is going around about 5 degrees cooler. Now here's something I do. Just because a lot of times when I'm barbecuing, it is cold. This is a fiberglass welding blanket that I bought that's dedicated just for this purpose. In fact, I really want a welding blanket for my welding shop, but I don't want to justify spending the money. So I use this one just to keep this thing kind of bundled up. Now the bottom chamber is double walled. That is pretty cool. It's much hotter there, but
I think it's on a ledge.
But the top is not insulated, and so this little blanket just kind of helps ensure that you know, it doesn't get wrong way there. It doesn't get too cold. And that's it. I can cook wintertime, summertime. Now what I will do, I've got an old wool blanket, and I'll just toss that up like that in the wintertime, and it's all bundled up.
Look like grandma.
Then you just already got it cut for you. Perfect. Thank you.